The ship that Pai's family takes is called the Tsimtsum. This is actually extremely important within the context of the movie, and that's why I'm going to explain it to you in detail right now. In early 2013, I was losing my faith in God. Born and raised Christian, I went to a Christian university and started seeing how hypocritical the students and faculty could be. Lost, I remember wanting to watch the Best Picture nominees for the 2013 Oscars. The final movie I watched was Life of Pi, and it taught me more about religion in 2 hours than a lifetime of going to church. Despite my doubts about religion, I've never been an outright atheist, and it's because of this movie. Perhaps the best way to summarize Life of Pi is through a clip from famous Christian minister Ravi Zacharias.
At another university, this girl goes up to the microphone, cups her hand. They don't even wait for the ground rules sometimes. So she goes up, cups her hands, and says, "You've talked today about culture seeking coherence? Who in the world told you culture needed to be coherent? Is this not another Western idea being foisted upon us?" So I finally said, "Ma'am, I'll be very happy to answer your question. When I'm answering you, do you want my answer to be coherent, or may I be incoherent in responding to you?"
Life of Pi promises to hold a story that will make the viewer believe in God. Pi tells 2 versions of his story. One that's rational, believable. The other version is unbelievable, seemingly impossible, but wildly compelling and inspiring. This movie has one question for us. Which story do we prefer? The one where Pi sees his mother murdered at the hands of a barbaric man? Or the one where Pi survives hundreds of days at sea in the presence of a Bengal tiger? The author, after hearing this story in the movie, says,
"It is a lot to take in, to figure out what it all means."
Oh, if it happened, it happened. Why should it have to mean anything?
And this gets back to Ravi's point. Do we want to believe that nothing makes sense in this world, that nothing has a point, that there is no meaning? Or do we need to make sense of the world around us? No matter how many of us will deny this, all of us desire meaning and purpose in our lives. And if we are the kind of person who believes in these kinds of things, that everything has meaning, then it's not hard for us to also believe in God, which is the point of the movie and what the author learns at the end of the story. Now that we know the point of the movie, let's take a look back on this film's hidden visual motifs and messages that were silently communicating this message to us the entire time. Life of Pi opens with a beautiful montage of animals living at the zoo. Why is this so interesting? They're just animals, right? Well, no, they're regular animals, but they're also exotic animals we've never seen before. And it's spellbinding to watch something you've never seen before habitate its environment. It's almost like you don't know if they're real or not. And what makes it even crazier is that some of these animals are in fact CGI generated. I took this montage to mean that there's many real things in this world that are unbelievable to witness. Are they really just mindless animals, or is there something more? It's a question we'll talk about later. Pi was named after a swimming pool in France called the Piscine Molitor. His honorary uncle, Francis, suggested this name to his father. Francis is also quite a unit, right? He was born with water in his lungs, and so the doctors twirled him around in a circle to get it out. It gave him skinny legs and a big chest. Francis is exhibit B of things that look unbelievable, but actually aren't. It looks fake and real at the same time, and this movie continues playing games with us, the audience, to see how many unbelievable things we're willing to accept. A fun detail here is that Pi never understood why his father named him after a swimming pool.
I never understood why my father took this so much to heart. But he did. And I was named Piscine Molitor Patel.
It's a throwaway line that actually means a lot. Pi's father is a shining bastion of rational thinking, and he criticizes religion, saying it's darkness.
Don't let these stories and pretty lights fool you, boys. Religion is darkness.
He's also a big fan of reason.
Listen, instead of leaping from one religion to the next, why not start with reason?
The word reason is so misleading here. Reason, by his father's meaning, is meant as the power of the mind to think, understand, and form judgments by a process of logic. Pi, many times in this movie, is searching for reason as well, but in a totally different meaning. Reason can obviously also mean a cause, an explanation, or a justification for a particular action. Pi asked the Christian priests why God would send his only son to atone for the sins of people who were guilty.
Why would a God do that? Why would he send his own son to suffer for the sins of ordinary people?
He also asks his love interest why she does a particular dance routine in her dance. He's got tons of questions. He always wants to know the answer to everything. He wants to know the reason why. And Pi's father, despite being obsessed with reason, doesn't really care about the reason behind anything. He just cares about what he's seeing. I thought this double meaning was so interesting, and it kind of explains why his father would name him after a swimming pool. Why? I don't know. There's no reason. Inevitably, the school kids start making fun of his name, and Pi, to change his fate, decides to make a spectacle for his school where he recites from memory hundreds of digits of the number pi. It's yet another unbelievable moment in this movie that we take for absolute fact. And it's a clever representation of the proclivity of human beings to believe in something inspiring like this or unbelievable. In 2012, I read an article about this movie's clever focus on the rational versus the irrational. Pi is an infinite irrational number that practically breaks mathematics, which is an area of study that's obsessed with logic and proof. And Pi himself is irrational, right? It's irrational to believe in God, to practice many different religions, and believe that animals have souls. His father, a rational man, doesn't believe in any of this. Therefore, Pi's name is a perfect representation for how he views the world. We're now introduced to Pi's mother, who's making a Kolam pattern on the ground. There are geometric patterns meant to bring the home prosperity. In other words, they're a clever blend of math and spirituality, two areas that seem to be at odds with one another. We see a Kolam pattern later on in the movie during a trippy sequence. And why? Why would we put this into the movie? Because the Kolam pattern is a clever blending of both of these worlds, the rational versus irrational, the spiritual versus the logical. And it represents the fact that Pi needs both of these worldviews to survive living with a tiger for hundreds of days at sea. We then hear Pi's mother tell a story about how Hindu god Krishna ate a bunch of dirt, and later his mother could see the whole universe in his mouth. Hamlet saw infinite space in a nutshell. William Blake saw a whole world in a grain of sand. This idea is referenced in a couple different sequences, namely when Pi and Richard Parker are staring into the abyss of the ocean together. They start seeing visions of infinity. We see tuna, sharks, squid, whales, colors, bubbles, a Kolam pattern, and even the face of Pi's mother. We then go through his mother's third eye, or bindi, to see the Tsimtsum at the very bottom of the ocean. The bindi is a person's third eye. Hindu tradition holds that all people have an inner third eye. The two physical eyes are meant to see the real world, while your inner eye is meant to turn inward and focus on God. At one point, Pi's mother says,
"Science can teach us more about what is out there, but not what is in here."
Pi tells his father that he knows that Richard Parker has a soul because he can see it in his eyes.
Animals have souls. I have seen it in their eyes.
And this is something the movie's script precisely wants to keep ambiguous as well, whether Richard Parker has a soul or not. When Pi sees Richard Parker for the first time, the script reads, Pi holds the lamb through the bars. The tiger walks slowly down the hallway, regarding Pi with a detached curiosity, as unthreatening in his manner as a large house cat. Eyes are the vessels through which we see the world, right? Pi's father judges the world based on what he sees alone, and Pi judges the world based on what he sees and feels. But what if there's more? What if there is an entire world in a drop of water? What better visual metaphor to help the audience understand infinity than the vast sprawling ocean that's infinitely deep and with an infinite amount of creatures? This movie also reflects the stars and the celestial bodies off of the ocean many, many times. It's meant to show Pi is lost and alone in the vastness of the universe. And the only thing keeping him alive or afloat in this case is his hope or faith that he can make it through this. The ship that Pi's family takes is called the Tsimtsum. This is actually extremely important within the context of the movie, and that's why I'm going to explain it to you in detail right now. With help from this article from chaba.org, I'm going to try my best to explain what Tsimtsum means. Rabbi Isaac Luria describes something known as the primal Tsimtsum. This Tsimtsum describes an initial, pre-creation state of infinite light, within which there is no place for anything to be at all. Before creating worlds, the creator had to withdraw some of the energy completely, resulting in a total void within the infinite light. He then extended into this void a metered line of light so he could create a vast number of different worlds. So to create worlds, he first needed to make space for it within his infinite light. This process is called Tsimtsum. God's infinite light is hidden from us so that we can make our own choices, but he remains immanently present throughout that hiddenness. It's kind of a paradox. Imagine a wise master teaching a younger pupil something, anything. The master required years of studying and experience to understand a certain topic, but when they're given the task of explaining to a young pupil all that they know, it's impossible. They wish to transmit all their knowledge to this young pupil, but how can they? The youngster lives in an entirely different world than theirs, and the pupil has never tasted the depth of insight achieved through hours of endless meditation on a single theme. If the master pours out all of his knowledge to the pupil, then the student is just going to sit there confused and in shock. So the master explains things in a way that the pupil can understand with stories. A story can dress your idea and the artifacts of the pupil's world. You can create a story that the pupil can easily understand and follow, one that makes sense and makes them feel comfortable. The master found a way to reduce and package his wisdom within the world of the pupil, but to do that, the first step was to leave his own self out of the picture. So it's Tsimtsum, or presence through absence. God might not be visible, but even if he was visible, we probably wouldn't even be able to comprehend his presence. We wouldn't be able to understand him. So he reveals himself through parables and stories and through human form, like Jesus. And that's what God did by creating a void in the circle of his infinite light. The void exists within the infinite light. God is there, but we just can't see him. Early in the film, Pi visits a Christian church in the hills. He asks the priest why God would send his only son to atone for the sins of the guilty, to which the priest responds,
God made himself approachable to us, human, so we could understand him. We can't understand God in all his perfection, but we can understand God's Son and his suffering as we would a brother's.
This is when Pi first comes across the idea of Tsimtsum. The fact that as humans, we can't possibly comprehend something as unimaginable as an infinite light or an all-knowing creator. And so to make certain ideas and concepts understandable, stories are told to us. Tsimtsum is in fact what Pi employs at the end of this film as well. The two men from the insurance company hear his entire story, but they're confused. They can't understand it. They want a better story, a more realistic story, the truth, something they can understand.
We don't mean to push you. And you have our deepest sympathies. But we have come a long way, and we are no closer to understanding why the ship sank.
What else do you want from me?
A story that won't make us look like fools.
We need a simpler story for our report. One our company can understand. A story we can all believe.
They can't comprehend what happens because Pi's story includes things they've never seen before. So Pi gives them another story, a brutal story, with things that they know and have seen before or have read about. A story that they can understand. What's interesting here is that Pi is bathed in a blinding white light the entire time. You never forget it. And it lines up with this idea of Tsimtsum as well. God creates a void in his infinite light to allow space for the creation of another world. Pi, darkened to blackness from his days at sea, is that visual void in the infinite light behind him. He is visually and actively engaging in Tsimtsum, and it ties this concept up in a neat little bow. I could talk about Life of Pi for another 30 minutes, at least, But I'm going to leave it there for today in the name of being brief. I hope you liked this video. If you want the written version of this video and all of my other film breakdowns, subscribe to my Substack. It is linked in the description down below. I hope you go check it out. It's free, so, what's stopping you? Also, if you like this video, please like and subscribe to this channel. I do film breakdowns like this all the time. I try to do one a week, and I've been doing that the past couple weeks. So if you want more videos like this in the future, hit the subscribe button. Also, comment down below what other movies you'd like me to break down for you. And let me know in the comments what you thought about my thoughts and if you have anything to add. I'd love to hear from you. All right, everybody. That's it. I'll see you next time.